Hello, world. Welcome to the conversation with the women of BSV. We are delighted to have as our guest today gaming, virtual reality, designer, and pioneer Robert Rice. He's the founder of Transmira and Omniscape and ushering the world into the genuine metasphere. So, Robert, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and I thought, oh my god, I forgot which week it was, and then oh my gosh, it's this week. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, and we have been looking forward to this day as well. We are big fans of your work and all of your products that you've put out. And I wonder, just to start, where did your love of games originate?
Good question. So I grew up in hi Casey. I grew up in the military, and we spent I don't know 12 years over in Germany. So that was like elementary school and part of high school for me. And being over there meant it was outside of being at school maybe with other American kids. Maybe I could play with some local German kids or something, but there was still a lot of free time. And my mother was loved board games, so we had the pantry was full of all the stuff, and we always had I guess single GIs would like come over and hang out because they had nowhere else to go, and my parents were very kind of hospitality sort of types. So yeah, always played a lot of games, and then part of that growing up, I got to see Tron, and like that for me was the watershed moment.
Oh, what a film!
I wanted to be inside of a computer so bad. I could taste it then. I can still taste it now. It's the same taste, right? It's like let me in. But yeah, I think that kind of started it, and I've always just loved, how games and worlds work, and part of it is okay, cool, run around, collect things, or beat things up, or whatever. But the really compelling thing for me is the environment itself, the ability to take you from where you are and maybe put you somewhere else. It's great to, I guess another example is again, growing up in Europe, my mother insisted every weekend that we go somewhere. So it was always a castle or a cathedral or a vineyard or a random park or something somewhere. And having having the ability to experience all of those environments was like really cool, but also being able to kind of think about games and game worlds and how do you build them? How do you make things interesting and compelling enough to communicate the sense of presence, right? I don't know if any of you travel a lot, but if you do travel, that when you go to a new city or a new town, the atmosphere is different, the air is different, everything tastes different, it feels different. Even the wind feels different. It's like little minor things. And the more places you go, the more obvious it becomes. And I don't think games today can really do that with very, very few exceptions. Valheim might be one that I would certainly suggest gives you a sense of being somewhere. When you're out in a tiny little boat around in that game and a storm kicks up, you have that immediate fear that you're going to sink. You're like riding the waves, lightning is happening, Thor is arcing through the sky, and you're like, oh my god, this is the coolest ever, sort of thing. So yeah, long answer, I just love games and game environments, but yeah, Tron was probably the kicker, plus just games in general.
Did you find when you were living in Germany that there was a lot of kind of history that going, because you got the Rhineland is beautiful, the castles are beautiful. There's a lot of history there as well. So they did that kind of like a fantasy kind of side of things. Did that kick off your imagination a little bit as well?
Yeah. When I was younger, like the elementary school sort of thing, maybe not so much. I mean, it was really cool seeing castles and that sort of thing. But as I got older, the whole 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade sort of age, where you're learning about history, and then you're like right smack dab in the middle of World War II history. And everywhere that we lived, we never stayed anywhere longer than 3 years. So it was always constant moving. But it was in the Bavaria Rhineland thing, right? So when I was in high school on the weekends, I would go biking up and down the Rhine River. Like that was normal to me. Or I could go, 20 kilometers one way and hit like 3 or 4 towns. And like, oh, here's where King Richard was held hostage for 2 weeks while he was on his way somewhere else. And, here's where this bomb hit, it exploded. Or here's where this other crazy event happened. And being able to like literally see, again, old castles or old cathedrals or like old train stations that survived, Allied bombing or whatever, was just absolutely phenomenal. And, every place over there has some really interesting story behind it, which, by the way, game designers need to learn from. Like, the real history. Yeah. There's one place over there. It's 2 cities, Eder and Oberstein, and they kind of combined, right? So Eder, Oberstein. And they're known for, like they're like a gem capital, like of the world, right? But it's all super high, sharp mountains and like, gorges and everything. And it's really amazing. But the thing that's like really killer is right in the middle of these two cities, there's a big like cliff. And in the cliff, it looks like somebody picked up a cathedral and just slammed it sideways into the cliff, right? So it's like a regular, it's a cathedral, there's the steeple and there's, the body. Wow. And then at the top is like a whole castle. And there's a whole story about why the castle is there, who built the cathedral, and why he did it out of penance because there was a fight over a girl and all this other stuff. And wow. It's like, yeah, and you have to like go up 1,000 stairs to get there, which is very tiring, but that's a sort of compelling backstory compared to hey, kill 10 rats and come back for level up, right?
No, that's one of the things that's nice about living in Europe, actually, is just all the history, and it does feed your imagination. When I was a kid, I used to play Warhammer, but the old kind of European version of it. So it is really nice to see those things and then be able to picture yourself in them in games. But like, tell us a little bit about Transmira and Omniscape as well, because I want to understand the difference between the two companies and what you guys are doing with each.
And how you actually, coming from Germany, living in Germany, moving around, how did you actually then transpire into, was it Tron that kicked you off to want to be in that industry?
Yeah. All right. So there's two stories. I'll tell the first one about Transmira first, then I'll come back to the Tron part, which involves a comic book store and the death of Superman, which is a whole other. You're like, wait, what? Where's he going with this?
Too many kryptonite.
I thought he was still alive.
Well, we'll come back to that. Okay, so the company Transmira is probably one of the more unique companies out there. I started it in 2014, so it's been around for a while. The name Transmira, it's trans, across, beyond, whatever, and then Mira, which in Spanish, mira means to look. I think in Russian, if you think about mir, the future, or like the root for miracle and mirage, all things that kind of fit the whole augmented virtual reality sort of thing. I think in Hindi it means prosperity. I mean, I don't know. I put way too much effort into naming things.
Beautiful.
And then I kind of spent a few years here in my basement, not talking to anybody, and really thinking about all the technology, all the trends, what was possible, what's not possible, watching all the movies, reading all the books, and really trying to understand what we all kind of think and believe and envision the metaverse to be, or what it could be. Right? What's all the cool stuff about Tron? What's all the cool stuff about Minority Report? Right? All that stuff. And then I tried to build user stories around that and then deconstruct them into kind of a technical roadmap. How do I do this? And like, if you've seen Minority Report, there's one scene where, Tom Cruise enters this mall and all these holograms kind of spring up and all the walls change. And it's all like hyper-targeted advertising specifically for him because it's recognizing his, his pupils and stuff. And most people I talk to are like, oh my God, how did they do those holograms? And from my perspective was, how did it know it was Tom Cruise? How do you build that, right? Because if you can build that, then all the other stuff is, whatever, it's easy. So in doing that, we kind of actually discovered a lot of problems in trying to build a global metaverse sort of thing, but it gave us time to sit down and think about how to solve them. So I feel like we've solved problems that really haven't even occurred to other people yet. And we just haven't had a chance to build them because we're kind of a small, tiny company. But yeah, so anyway, so that was kind of how we got started. And then I guess a few years ago in 2000, maybe early 18, or maybe early 2019, I met my co-founder, Satwant, who was some guy doing some things on Udemy, teaching a class on AR. And I totally just brainwashed him with these awesome lights back here and convinced him to be a co-founder. And, once I sucked him in, he hasn't been able to leave, which is kind of sad for him. But that kicked things off. We started doing some demos. We got a little bit of capital in, and then I had a friend of mine suggest I go to BSV London or CoinGeek London a couple years back.
And I was 2020.
Yeah, I've never heard of this CoinGeek stuff, and I don't know who these guys are. I don't know. I don't have the money for this. It's like, dude, you gotta go. You're gonna meet this guy named Paul and this other guy named Jimmy. You're gonna love them. I was like, I don't know. And I talked to some of my other investors and like, dude, you've got nothing to lose. Just go over there. So I thought, okay, great. So I went and got COVID. That was the plan. That was the plan.
Everybody did, I think.
Yeah, like most of the people there did. No, for sure.
Did you go to the after party? Did you go to
I did
where the
go.
in the? Yeah.
That was a saucy after party with a lot of really, really drunk people. But
Did you
was,
sit in the
and
DeLorean?
pizza.
I did.
And the DeLorean.
I have photos of me in that DeLorean for sure,
Yeah.
and I got some other photos of my co-founder hanging out with some of the models and stuff that were there. So yeah, good times. But yeah, so I met Paul and I met Jimmy and all that. But the thing that blew me away the most was two things. A, trying to understand the technology compared to everybody else, right? Speed, scale, cost, all that stuff. But the absolute mind-blowing thing was the people. I've been to so many conferences in so many industries and so many, whatever, over the last billion years. I'm older than I look, I promise. Or I'm not as old as I look, that's what I should say.
I was going to say there's a lot of conferences in a billion years.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I invented the conference. It's in my other book. But it was like everybody I talked to, not a single person was pitching or showing a coin or a protocol. They're all like, "Hey, look at this cool thing we're building. This is so amazing and so fun. And what are you doing? What are you working on?" And like that is such in stark contrast to everything else. And sure, we have our little community dramas and whatnot, but all in all, the people are absolutely amazing. And everybody I've met at all the Coin Geeks I've been to and all the other, BSV events, it's the same thing. I feel like I can show up now. I feel like I'm part of a family. I feel like I'm easygoing. I feel like I could walk up to anybody, Jimmy or Philip Runyon or, the Built by Gamers guys, and just pick one. I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with this over here. You guys have any ideas or, can we work together? And be like, oh, cool, let's go grab a beer and sort it out. Right. And like, you just can't get that anywhere. And that, again, plus all the cool technical business use cases, I thought, this is it. I'm going to double down on this and, full speed ahead. And then of course, I came home and was sick for like a week. But that kind of started things off. And then, we attracted the attention of, Air Ventures and some other investors. And then it's just been going faster and faster. And then just as kind of another side note, a little bit of a personal story here. So in 2020, while a lot of this was going on, I was mostly blind. So I had an early glaucoma when I was younger, and it damaged my optic nerves a little bit. But by the time 2020 rolled around, I couldn't see very well out of this eye. Had a cataract and a detached retina, right? And in this eye, I was developing another cataract. So I had persistent double vision and persistent triple vision. And then while I was in Dubai, the interview I did with Natalie, I couldn't see her because this eye here its retina was detaching. So I did that whole interview with the detached retina, got on a plane, flew back, and like went into surgery, right? But the whole time there, Philip Runyon was walking me around like a guide dog, making sure I didn't chip into things and not go over my drink and help me get around the airport. But this is the type of community that was there. I didn't ask him for it. He didn't ask anything, for it. He just kind of stepped up and was like super friendly and helped me with that. And now I can see fine. I've had multiple surgeries and stuff, but this is why to me the BSV community is so important, because again, you just don't get this anywhere. And I think, regardless of what all the haters say, there's long-term sustainability to they say a good team can make a crappy company awesome, but a bad team can make a good company terrible, right? And I think that's kind of how the community is here. Everything that's happening in other protocols, it's ephemeral. It's not going to last. It's all Ponzi scheme, buy my coin, pump and dump. But when you talk to anybody in BSV, it's never about the coin, it's never about the price. It's about what can I build and how can I make things better. So I'll get off my soapbox.
That's a good soapbox to stand on. To be fair.
Okay, so let me tell you about the death of Superman. So living in Germany, come back to the States, finish high school. I went to college, was pursuing a double major in music and theology. I was going to be a minister. It was a different time in my life. Did that for about a year, did campus securities like a day job and whatnot. And after the first year, I couldn't afford to go back. So I thought, I'm going to get a day job, work and go, whatever. So I ended up getting a job working for the Army and Air Force Exchange Services detective. Coolest job ever in my life, but it was like $8 an hour. So not very sustainable. So I did that for about a year in Aberdeen and Maryland and Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Had a lot of fun. And then I decided to convince a friend of mine who had a massive comic book collection that he should sell it. So we moved to Louisville, Kentucky, bad idea, where my dad had retired, and we started a comic book store. So, comics, games, anime, toys. I was buying Star Wars toys from other kids and flipping them for 8 times the price like a day later. It was awesome. And then they decided to kill Superman. So DC Comics was like, hey, Superman's dead, yay. It was good for me because we were selling copies of that for $75 a shot.
Wait. How did they kill Superman?
Oh, Doom was the name of the bad villain that just kind of came in and roughed him up and killed him. It was a terrible storyline. But yeah, Superman died. And then they brought back like 7 different versions of Superman, like, oh, one of these is the real one or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of retconning and stuff, but this is the first time they killed Superman. But as a result, my business like tanked. It went from like, yay, to like, oh my God, how I could keep the lights on like overnight. And so I'm sitting there with my business partner. We were trying to figure out how we were going to save the company. And this guy walks in. He's like, hey, everybody, I've got this cool virtual reality machine. Can I put it in your store? And I was like, do you have to ask? This is a comic book store. Cart that thing in here. And he did. And it was, super, very, very rudimentary, 5 minutes in it and you were puking on the floor. It was these 2 little like 320 by 200 LCDs like jammed right up against your eyes. The thing in the front weighed about 15 pounds. So when you put it on, your head immediately went down. It was terrible, but it was really cool. So we had it in a store for a little while. And then he comes up to me one day and he's like, hey, Robert, you know how to use a computer, right? I'm like, dude, I'm in the stock room picking up girls on CompuServe like all day long. Yes, I know how to use a computer. I have an email address. And this is like 1991. So if that gives you any context, this is pre-AOL. Yeah, I was super cool.
Very early. Like that's the beginning of the internet early.
Yeah, 100%. So he says, great. I'll give you a job. You're going to be our first senior multimedia engineer. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that sounds spiffy. What do I have to do? So he gives me a pre-release version of 3D Studio and a copy of Deluxe Paint with no manuals and says, go figure this out. So I had to teach myself 3D modeling and animation and texturing and drawing and all that sort of stuff with no manuals, no YouTube, no books of the library. It was, trial and error. And then he comes and says, hey, I managed to license Wolfenstein 3D from id. We're going to make it Wolfenstein VR. We're going to make it multiplayer. It's going to be cool. But we need you to go in and edit out like all the swastikas and, turn all the red blood into like green and stuff. So I thought, okay, cool. So I spent hours and hours and days going pixel by pixel by pixel, changing the hue because I didn't know how to do a selection set or a gradient because I don't know. I'm just self-learning. So yeah, somebody finally pointed it out to me and I felt like an idiot, but I learned a huge amount, working for those guys, and that was like a good year and a half, and that kind of gave me enough of education in a box to kind of feel like I could go off and do it on my own. That's how I ended up here in Raleigh in 1995.
So how do you feel at the moment, though? I mean, you used the first iteration of 3D Studio Max.
Yeah, it was very simple, and I had a hard time trying to wrap my head around things like Phong and Garou shading and all these like super rudimentary things. And now people are like, oh yeah, dude, let's just throw out a shader and you're fine, right?
Yeah. And how long did it? I mean, like, how long did it take you to build a character?
I didn't get that far. I got as far as doing basic objects and then hired other people and trained them and then stepped back and let them do hard work. Yeah, and then my boss comes to me one day. He's like, hey, you're a musician, right? I'm like, yeah, I play saxophone, college jazz, whatever. He's like, great, you're our new sound engineer. Here's this digital sampler, an digital audio recorder, and a synthesizer. So go figure it out. So I had to figure out how to do sound effects. So I have no idea. Wave for Windows on a 486 PC. And I'm running around like the zoo in the backyard, and with my little microphone, recording everything, and then going back and editing the heck out of like the waveform. Mm-hmm. And the one that I'm most proud of was there was one part of the game where we had these 2 massive, like metal bulky doors that were like slowly closing and like would shut and then like they would lock. And I had recorded the sound of a Polaroid camera ejecting film. Right, slowed it way down, added a little bit of reverb, tweaked the the pan a little bit, and it was like just and then that last ejection was like when the lock closed. Yeah, so I'm super proud of that. Yeah, good time.
That's awesome. I mean, because you're talking, the first iteration of 3D Studio Max was really big, really clunky, and like you say, I asked you about models because obviously it used to take days or weeks to build a model, and now it's like just a couple of minutes. You can do like a 2D photo, just pull that in, and 5 minutes later you've got a 3D almost rigged model.
I think the first thing I did was the magnifying glass, and I was dumb because trying to do the glass part was a migraine. And then the second thing I did was actually a Tron tank because, Tron.
Why not? Yeah.
And that took me about a week. And as simple as a model as that is, any guy today could probably do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it took me about a week to do.
Yeah, exactly. So just changing the subject a little bit, you mentioned sound engineering here. So who was your jazz, influence?
I had gotten a hold of some bulletin board posts from some random, bulletin board, because that's what we had. That was the internet, was bulletin boards. And some guys had a whole conversation about sound engineering, and one of them had posted, I guess, some notes or an article or something from the LucasArts guys. They were talking about how they did the sound for the X-Wings. You guys want to guess how they did that? No, you're going to guess all day long. So they took a sledgehammer to a high tension power wire and recorded
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Fire is driving slowly over gravel in a parking lot, and then you slow that down and add some other flavors to it.
Yeah. And it was a star cloth, wasn't it, in the famous Millennium Falcon scene where they go into light speed. It was like that's just a star cloth. It's like,
it's fascinating.
Yeah, I've just started reading a book at the moment, actually, which is about sacred sound, divine sound and stuff. But it's actually, the preface is by the actual sound guy from all of Lucas's films, from Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So.
That's really cool. There's something to be said for that. So I had an artist working for me once, and he was super fascinated by sacred art and geometry, and which I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm a big fan of geometry stuff, right? You throw down some golden ratio, whatever pi, and I'll be your friend for like an hour. Like, let's talk about faux. Like, oh my god, right? Like, that's some really, really cool stuff. I'm fascinated by it, and I know how to spell dodecahedron, so yay for me. But when you think about no, I really do. But when you think about like audio and stuff, I think that's one of the few things that people really overlook. Audio adds, it's like the missing element to a visual. Some really good audio will suck you right in. You can even do low polygon stuff, but really good audio will fool your brain into just massive immersion. And then, when you think about, tones and all that, then you start getting into things like resonance. And that's a whole nother, that's a bit of science that people even today don't really have quite a full grasp on. As an example, one guy that did have a really good grasp on it was Nikola Tesla. He used to experiment with resonance in like things on like buildings and bridges, and he almost destroyed a skyscraper in New York once, according to legend, because he found the right resonant frequency, and the whole thing just started
started shaking.
So he got spooked and like got out of town, but that's fascinating stuff. And I think today, with all the technology and noise canceling and surround sound and all this, it's just going to get cooler and cooler, and to some point where I don't know, back to brainwashing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
and the audio of my amazing voice, just really getting in there. So
well, and medicine and energy of the future will be with sound.
Yeah, 100%.
Other things too, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about like kidney stone stuff, right?
Well, sound frequencies actually kill cancer cells. They've known that for at least 12 years or so. But actually, I mean, the ancients, they knew the power of sound anyway. They levitated things with certain sound frequencies. So yeah, I mean, it's old technology that we've kind of lost along the way, but we've utilized in a modern format. If you think about it, what are they called? Ultrasound. When you can see the shape of the baby inside the mother's womb. I mean, that is a sound frequency. Again, it's just very low sound frequencies.
It's really exciting that you know about that, Robert, being such an integral part of building the metaverse. Like, if you bring in those sacred frequencies and all that sacred geometry to what you're building, it'll help so many people without them even knowing what's happening.
Well, it's a lot like feng shui and other things too, right? The visuals of your environment have a huge impact on just your overall well-being, right? If you stuck me in a room with really garish, painting and horrible lights and construction outside, I would never have a moment's worth of peace. It just doesn't happen. But that's why you can go to a park or something somewhere and get like that cool Zen moment, find your center, get all refreshed. And as much as I like blowing things up in games, there's also the like we were talking about earlier, that sense of being somewhere, being present, or exploring somewhere. And I admit I've spent hours in Valheim just not doing anything and just watching the time change, because it's just absolutely amazing. But even if we got back to the sacred side, probably the very first expression, "Let there be light," that was technically audio. Right? So,
yeah, exactly. So the first thing could not have been light, because somebody actually spoke a word.
Yeah,
so when to hear a spoken word, you have to have a sound energy frequency, some vibration going off to be able to hear it. So
words are powerful, and so are sounds. And like, if you guys, I'm sure you've seen Jimmy up on stage when he does his thing, the audio experience of being in that audience while that is on, it does not communicate well over YouTube. But if you're there, you're like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever. Sign me up.
I know the
Yeah.
timing and everything. He really works hard on those speeches, isn't there? They're great.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a concert a few weeks ago. It was Stormzy, and there was just a particular bass line, and literally there's 10,000 people, but the actual floor and the seats were vibrating through the bass. Now that, you know, you can't replicate
Yeah,
that
they all
with anything else. It was amazing, you know, just whole bodies just like, you know.
Well, Dr. Masaru Emoto, that Japanese scientist that shows how the water affects the water, or the sound affects the water molecules of the body too. I mean, there's something majorly happening to your entire being, being exposed to that kind of bass and that kind of stuff. It really changes the whole structure of your body from the water.
It's all good until your molars fall out, you know.
Yeah, your molars. Yeah.
Have you ever tried that though? You get just a plate and you put some water in it, and then you just put it on a vibration plate, and you can see the shapes emerge, in the sacred geometry shapes actually emerge within the water from the vibration of certain frequencies. Same with sound and stuff. And they call it.
I haven't, but I've done that with like those those magnets.
Yes.
So we just kind of see that. Yeah. It's all the same stuff, but it is just absolutely mind blowing to actually see firsthand. Like, you know, wow, there's so much that we just don't even know.
It's very exciting that you know about it.
Can you explain a little bit about what you envisage, what the metaverse would look like to you? Like, what is it that you think it needs to be? Like,
so there's a couple of different, I guess, schools of thought right now, or at least maybe, I don't know, that's probably not the right word. You've got a lot of guys like Sandbox, Second Life, Decentraland, you know, VR Chat, Cryptovoxels, you know, Facebook's Meta. They're all basically social VR places of different categories. And some of them are all about buy our token, and by the way, we do cool VR. And others are, hey, it's social VR, you can do work stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think any of them are actually metaverse at all. I think they're basically just social VR worlds that could ultimately be part of a metaverse. But that's it, right? And then some of them, like most of the focus is I go and I buy a property and I can drop a building on it and hang out with my friends and maybe do virtual casino stuff. Okay, so that's like Second Life, you know, part 2. How is that actually metaverse? So I think for us, this is where, you know, we go against the grain, and, you know, we're everybody's going this way, we're going the complete other direction. Is for us, it's the full expression and potential of the metaverse is, I think it has to be linked to the real world to some degree, and you have to have AR and VR together, right? It's like the metaverse to me is all the data, all the visualizations, all the cool fun stuff around us, but also in other places. So, you know, I should be able to, or actually, so I should be able to have a 3D copy of my office here, and each of you should be able to log in, make an avatar, and explore that 3D version of my office. But at the same time, I should be able to sit here and use like my phone or a pair of cool, you know, I don't know, Oakley glasses and see your avatars walking around my office as like your holograms, right? That's what I mean by this whole AR VR crossover. You're experiencing my house or my office in VR, and I'm experiencing you being here in AR. And when you think about that, suddenly it's like all bets are off, everything changes, and things that you just simply can't do in a pure social VR world are now suddenly possible. And then you've got all these other sort of applications for, you know, enterprise or medicine or you know, tourism or power and gas. I mean, all the really cool stuff is suddenly doable when you start with the location first in the real world and things like, you know, data and IoT sensors, and then you start building wrappers around that, you know, the AR and then the digital twin, you know, that's like a copy, and then ultimately whatever fantasy thing you want, right? So why not have a 3D floating castle with wings tied to your house? You should have that plus a 3D copy of your house, because sometimes you just want to hang out with your friends and be goofy because you've got a flying castle. And other times you want to be super professional and, you know, entertain somebody coming over for a business meeting. But at the end of the day, though, it all needs to be linked back to that location, because that's what gives you context and relevance. So, you know, that's our focus. We start the real world, we build out. And then ultimately, if we do our job right, other social VR worlds like Decentraland or Sandbox, whatever, should be connecting to us so they could connect with other places, but also get that link back to the real world. And that's why, you know, we're a small team. We're slow. We've been doling out little bits and pieces and kind of glimpses here and there over the last 2 years. And I'm sure half of our Discord channel is getting driven crazy by it. But the stuff that's coming out in maybe the next between now and December, we're doing other, little bit of rollout. Like the marketplace will come out in maybe a couple more weeks, but it'll be super rudimentary, super basic. But that's not the cool stuff. The cool stuff is going to be what the marketplace is going to look like by September or October, right? So we're doing these things, these little stages. But the bigger the master plan, there's been so much work we've been doing behind the scenes and just kind of biding our time. It's going to be, so we actually showed off the whole AR VR blend I just talked about at CES earlier this year, which was awesome, except that none of the press was there because they were all worried about COVID. So like nobody knows. We did this like super historic thing. So we had a full-on digital copy of Miami South Beach. So you could walk around like, in Ocean Drive and see the Versace mansion and all that. And then, so I'm there on stage. I'm like, hey, check this out. This is, whatever. Yeah. And we had a ground team in Miami that was holding up, our app. Like, hey, look, there's Robert's, where's the screen? Yeah. There's Robert's holograms that coming towards us, like double tap. And then we had like a voice connection. So we were like talking and trading objects. And I mean, it was really mind blowing that we actually pulled that off. And now the trick is doing it at scale and launching the first city. And
what's the problems that you've faced? I mean,
how long does it take to make it Miami copy?
Yeah.
It depends. So getting like a raw scan of a city, we actually have some partners for that, and they can generally knock out a small or medium-sized city in just a couple of weeks. No big deal. Right, here
Is that with like a car driving around with the thing on it? Map
that's maybe 10% of it. They have an aerial option that's supplemented
drones
by
and stuff.
No drones.
No.
No. That's actually, a lot of people use drones and they have a hard time getting permission because people don't like drone flights. So they have another alternative, which is kind of genius. I don't want to mention it because it's one of their competitive advantages. But I was like, wow, okay, that's wow, guys, that's pretty baller, right? So anyway, so they can do a city pretty quickly. The tricky part is taking that raw data and going in and cleaning it up. You got to remove people, you have to remove cars, you have to, look for artifacts, and that's production time. It takes, warm bodies and seats just fixing that. Mm-hmm. But the Miami experience took us probably maybe just less than a month to kind of make that look super sharp and get all that working. But yeah, outside of that, we've had a couple of technical issues here and there, just trying to take things and make them work in ways that they weren't meant for, or like for us, a lot of things are basically like puzzle pieces, right? I've got BSV and I've got computer vision and I've got a rendering engine and I've got Unity and I've got Unreal and I've got Mongo and I've got Firebase, and I mean there's all these things, and not all the tools are necessary to fit together, so we have to like switch around and shift and say, okay, well, does this work, and then when we finally find something that does work, then it's like we're off to the races. And everybody else is out there shilling their coins, and we're like making the thing. So. And
Robert, what would be available in your marketplace?
So right off the bat, it's going to be a whole bunch of just kind of generic 3D objects. So you can buy them, and then they should immediately be on your phone. So just like the unicorn, the alien, you can play around with them and just do some super basic stuff. Again, we're just getting started, but over the summer, we're going to start adding in other tools. So if you're a 3D artist, you're going to be able to upload your own 3D object.
That's what I was going to ask. That's cool.
Yeah. GLTF or GLB, that's where we're starting with. So you can upload it and then basically say, hey, I want to sell 1,000 of these. So they're all basically 3D NFTs. And then the next piece after that is for you or other people to basically drag and drop them to a map. So I'm going to go to your page. I'm going to buy a bunch of 3D pink flamingos from you because that's what you made. And then I'm going to drop them all over my evil arch enemy's front lawn so he can go outside and see the pink flamingos and be your
imagine how fast it will be built out when people can introduce their own stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's part of our business model. So you can do whatever you want for free, but if you want everybody to see it, we'll charge you like a small fee. So I'm super excited to have like maybe a bunch of basketball players from Duke go over to UNC and drop a bunch of Duke mascots and pay me like $10, and students freak out and pay like $20 to make it go away, and then drive over to Duke and pay another $50 to go out there.
I can imagine people building orcs and dragons and stuff, like walking, running around the city. Got a T-Rex and everything like that as well.
And that the next stage there is basically tying in game mechanics, so conditionals and triggers and things like that. So being able to drop content is cool for people to pick up and do all that. But if you could do something where you can't see this or interact with it until something else has been picked up or unlocked or experienced with, those basic things, open up a lot of variety of ways to create experiences. So I can't even imagine them all, but we want to make things super, super simple, a lot of drag and drop. And then, if you're a hardcore guy, we'll have an API, and then you kind of go in and, go to town. But yeah, so this is the year that we're going to be rolling out all the stuff. There's a 20% chance we may have like one of the like biggest crazy announcements ever at the blockchain conference in Dubai next month,
Wow.
or not. I don't know yet. There was a reason I've been traveling a lot recently, and if we pull it off, it's going to be like mad sick huge. And if we don't pull it off, then you guys be like, so what happened? And I'm like, get me drunk and I'll tell you.
what day are you going to be presenting?
I don't know yet. I got to ask Jimmy. It's either first or second day, but I'm going to be there a week beforehand because we've got some other meetings and things going on. So,
one brainstorm I had last month was, the Cracker Jack box.
Yeah.
And how there's a prize in the Cracker Jack box.
Yep.
And so maybe for all those attendees at the conference, when they register and they first walk in the door, they could get one of your prizes.
Yeah. And put some codes or something there. No, we've actually we have a friend of mine actually does some work for the Kinder Egg people. So we were looking at the same sort of thing with the toys and the Kinder Eggs, but I hadn't thought of Cracker Jacks. We have a whole nother angle where we're going after sports entertainment and stadiums and that sort of thing. So when you think baseball, you think Cracker Jacks. That is such an easy co-branding sort of cool play. That would be super cool. I have to think about that.
Oh, good.
It's so weird how much of the world is becoming digital, isn't it? Like, I think selling digital products is probably the next, big shoe to drop, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I think so. And this is where I'm either going to be fabulously wealthy in a few years, or I'm going to be like begging to do another interview so I don't get lost in the annals of time. One of the crazy things, and this is why it was totally worth me ignoring everybody and being a hermit in my basement. So the very first patent that we filed it in 2018, and then it got granted last year. So the priority date goes back to 2018, and it's basically, there's a lot in there, but the main thrust is this concept of linking 2D and 3D objects to things in the physical real world, right? So I find a 3D Starbucks coffee cup, I collect it in AR or whatever, and then I go to Starbucks and exchange it for real coffee. Then you make it an NFT, and it has value, and you can track where it came from and all that. And that's it. Super basic, super simple. But there's like a dozen brands that are already infringing on this. Starting with like Adidas and Nike, for example. Hey, buy our cool 3D, Nike NFTs, and then in a couple months, we'll send you a custom pair, right? Or whatever. And like, hey guys, that's my patent. You owe me money. But no, I think that's where things are going. And again, this is where I think guys like Sandbox and all these other guys, they don't have that real world link. So there's only so much you can do, and then it drops off. It's like, what's next for them? What more interactive social VR? Like there's nothing there. But if you're able to, link to things in the real world, right? Like, hey, I found a 3D Tesla, and oh my God, it's one of 100. It's actually worth a real Tesla. He who owns the object owns the thing, right? Or so many other ways to do consumer, brand engagement, and there's just so many things happen and open up when you start linking 3D objects to things in the real world. And that's where I think that's the future of commerce, especially when it comes to metaverse stuff. And it hasn't occurred to anybody else yet. And we have the patent. Yay.
Well, can you enforce the patent, do you think? I mean, because like you say,
yeah. No, it's a 100% granted legal one. It's a patent, yeah, for sure. So we actually it is. So there's a few of our investors and potential investors have actually had other third parties do an evaluation, like, oh well, you say it's good. We had one guy come back. He was like, yeah, so my attorney said this is too good to be true, and how the hell did you manage to get this patented? So I got a second opinion. So he was like, I got a second opinion. I'm like, oh man, I want to go with the first guy. He said the second guy said basically the same thing. They can't understand how you actually got this patent because it's really well written, and whatever. We were so early with it that it's really good. So we've got a baller IP law firm that we're working with now, and we don't want to sue anybody. That's too much pain in the neck, but
license it. Right?
I was going to say, I mean, does that apply for any NFT that's pegged to a real item, or just in the virtual world?
Only if it meets the conditions. So in the very first patent, there's 3 conditions. It's a 2D or 3D object. It has to be presented in an interactive or immersive environment, which means even a 3D rendering would count in most, work. And then the third piece is there has to be some link to something physical in the real world, right? So credit, voucher, redeemable product, offer, service, asset, merchandise, whatever. So some things that are out there, a NFT that can be exchanged for something else, nobody cares, doesn't count. But if there's any kind of that 3D presentation, or the second you stick it in, Fortnite or Sandbox or whatever, then it's like, we got you. And then on top of that, this is where things get fun. We filed a continuation in part and then a secondary amendment to all that to extend on, the stuff in the first patent, where the definition and the use cases expand out to other things like real estate, situations of cases without the interactive 3D piece in the middle, right? And a few other things. And because those are all subsequent to the first one, if they get granted, they inherit the first one's priority date.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then yeah, no, I feel a little giddy about it sometimes, but and then we filed another patent, I guess this back in December, and this is the other big one. This one is all about the conversion and synchronization of coordinates between an AR environment and a VR environment. So if we get that patent, the whole concept of a 3D digital twin of a city that you can explore in VR and interact with people on the ground in AR, will be like the only ones on the planet that can do that. So
Nice.
Wow.
I think ahead.
Jane helping you with these patents, or are you?
It's mostly me in my basement with a lot of pizza and coffee, and sometimes it takes me like 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, and then there's that 1 or 2 days where 20 pages, right? It's like Robert's typing away, and then we have an amazing patent attorney that the dude walks on water as far as I'm concerned. He's pulled off some amazing. Yeah, no, so no,
I
we're
haven't talked to you in a long time. I knew your head was down doing some amazing stuff. I was waiting to get the app update for individual creators.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the problem with being a small tiny team. We're kind of behind on a lot of things, but it's coming. I promise.
Cool.
I think that link to things in the real world is so vital. I mean, like I own a printing company. We print tickets and vouchers, right? The old-fashioned kind on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we still do it at all, because obviously it's a sort of a dying industry, really, is because people like to receive something physical. Like if I give you a voucher, I've given you something. But to have it tied to, augmented reality, like you're doing, is really a true replacement.
Oh yeah. No, this is the other fun thing about the patent. So we made sure that we covered it both ways. So if you go to a marketplace or go to a virtual world or something and you find, again, 3D Starbucks coffee cup, and then, you can get a real coffee for it. That's really cool. But it works the other way too. So if you go to, say, the store and buy a, My Little Pony, plushie, that should then give you rights to the 3D My Little Pony NFT. So we can drive people to buy physical merchandise to get the virtual version and invite back and forth.
Vice versa.
So, yeah. Score for the patent, right? But to your point, everybody that we always give our deck to, they don't like it. But we printed out this amazing, super sexy sort of things, like all the cool stuff that we do and all that.
Wow.
And everybody reads this. They grab onto it and they go, "Oh my God, would you autograph this? Can I have it?"
Yeah.
So
people do like real stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. As much as we're doing the metaverse sort of stuff, you can't beat something physical that's colorful. So yeah, print is not dead, regardless of what people say.
Well, I suppose
That's true. And speaking of print, I have your publication here, MMO Evolution.
Yeah, I'm excited and embarrassed at the same time. So
Yes, thank you. It's beautiful. And I think it's a must read for all of us in the industry, because everything that you say in this book about the massively multiplayer online role-playing games is relevant now in the virtual world that's emerging. We say metaverse, maybe metanet, metasphere. What sort of word do you prefer to name this new industry?
Yeah, I think I prefer Lord Robert's domain.
it's quite literal, isn't it?
I'm only partially joking. I actually prefer metaverse, because meta, it just means above and beyond, right? It's all encompassing. And then for us, even like I mentioned with Transmira, some thought went into the name Omniscape. You know, it was a little influenced by Netscape. I always thought it was a fantastic name for a company.
It was, yeah.
But you know, Omni is all things, and I think, you know, for us to do AR and VR and the real world and all the other stuff, it's a landscape that, you know, it's almost like being able to step through different dimensions at the same time, and like show me this or show me that, or let me go here, let me go there. So
what would you really what environment would you really like to work on?
In what sense?
Well, like, you know, I mean, pyramids, or, you know, under the ocean, or just cityscapes, or like you know, cosmos. What environment would really?
I would say all of them, but I am a huge sucker for Japanese tea houses and like mountain hot springs, and I just think those monkeys that get in there with the snow are just ridiculous. But hey, they got the right idea, right? Hey, snow and hot spring, you cannot go wrong. But yeah, no, just the general vibe of, you know, being up to kind of that mountainside sort of thing, that really, you know, small town and kind of that Japanese aesthetic. I think that's like a zen place for me. I can just go hang out there and, you know, listen to the birds and the chimes and whatever. But other than that, yeah, no, I'm just fascinated with the world at large. I think there's a lot of amazing places and architecture and things like that. And you know, one of our use cases is like, it's cool if you can go to, you know, Second Life or Decentraland and kind of walk around and do whatever. But if you had the ability to like go to, say, the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin and walk around 1-to-1 scale, you know, Unreal 5 with all the bells and whistles turned on, and feel like you're actually there, that's really cool. But if you feel like you're actually there, and then all those other avatars walking around are actually representing people that are there at the gate walking around, and you can talk to them. Oh, you want to talk about making new friends or learning a language or really experiencing a culture? There is literally no other way to do that sort of thing other than actually going there today. You know, you can watch all the movies you want, listen to all the audiobooks you want, YouTube videos, whatever. But this, again, the AR VR blend, you know, it's one step shy of teleportation. But being able to interact with like real life people at a location through the metaverse, I think, is going to be one of those game changing things that everybody else is going to be like, wow, why didn't we do that? You know, but we've got this cool, I don't know, this weirdo building next to Snoop Dogg's house and, you know, sandbox. Like, yeah, that's cool for you, bro. You know.
And if we were there in your office, Robert, and we happened to go to your bookshelf, what tomes would we find?
A lot. I don't even know where to start. I have all the things up there. Yeah, no, if you threw a title at me, I would say I probably have it. As far as science fiction or fantasy goes, and because I consume all of that. I also have a lot of older stuff. A lot of people don't really think about, like, you know, sci-fi or even fantasy written in like the 40s or 50s or even early 60s. There are some phenomenally good works there. And when you compare the writing style and the vocabulary and whatever to the drivel that we get when we go to, you know, Barnes and Noble these days, you're like, oh my God, my mind is blown. I don't even know what this word is. I need a dictionary, right? But it's like really good stuff. It's like good meat for your brain. And then outside of that, I've got a couple other really interesting books. There's one, Third Wave by Alvin Toffler. If you want to have a really good understanding of why the world is the way it is today, I would read that book. It's old, but it's one that will just like blow your mind. And it has to do with kind of the colliding waves of agricultural, industrial, and technological advancements, and how that affects politics and education and all the things. Yeah, it's hugely awesome. I recommend it. Gödel Escher Bach. That's another one that I've never been able to finish reading because it's so dense and so cerebrally intellectual. I just like owning it and showing it off and letting people think that I've read it. But yeah, I'd recommend that one. And then I've got some others. But if you're, plus my book, you should totally, mine is like the ultimate, you know, there it is.
How many have you written? Is that the only one you've written?
Yeah, that's when I looked super hot back in the day.
Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's the only book that I've written, but I've been a contributing author in some other places. Actually, a much better read is a chapter I wrote for a book in 2009. It was called Working Through Synthetic Worlds. I was invited with a bunch of other authors. Everybody like had a chance to, you know, write a chapter. And I think if you go and you look through the biography, I believe I'm like the only guy out of, I don't know, like 40 chapters that doesn't have a PhD. So this is like a big, I was so, you know, strolling around like, hey, I keep up with the smart guys. But I wrote it, it was, what was it? It was something like, shoot, it was like enhanced, hold on a second. I got to tell you, because this is.
Is it on your blog?
No, it's buried somewhere. So it's basically something like enhanced forensics and crime scene simulations using something or other.
Wow.
No, it was super heady, and the idea was, how could you recreate a crime scene and then actually get value out of it, whatever. But the way the book was structured, they were like, every chapter needed to be in 3 parts. So the first part was a fiction story. Describe your technology working as it would in the future. And then the second part was like a technical sort of review, and then the third part was like a literary analysis. So I got to put on my super creative hat and wrote a story about like a cop in the future trying to investigate a crime scene, and how like cool AR stuff she was doing, and discovering secret occult stuff buried in the whatever. It was like really cool. Her name was Kendra, I think. And then the second part, I'm breaking down, how do you actually do this with tech? And again, I wrote this in 2009, and I feel like it's still pretty on the spot. And then the third piece was like this literary review where I had to be, pretend I was like super scholarly and go in and talk about what other people are doing, and a lot of citations and stuff. And I'm kind of proud of that too. But yeah.
Wow.
And have you written in game worlds, game storylines?
Yes. I'd say mostly unpublished. So my very first software company in '95, we were building the world's first real-time 3D massively multi-user online role-playing game. And this is back in the days when you can't do real-time 3D on a PC. I'm like, this is really hard. Like our demo was on a VHS tape. That's how crazy it was, because the computers were those gateways were massive, right? No, I did some writing for that, and then I wrote out a whole 100+ pages worth of stuff for another MMO I was developing called Immortal Destiny back in the day. I almost had IBM involved in that one, but that one never got funded, so I just kind of shelved it and ultimately ended up. I've published a couple. We actually published, what was it? Storm Riders Online was a game, an MMO I licensed from a Malaysian company and launched here in the States and in Europe. It was super cool. It was awesome. And it was fantastic until World of Warcraft launched. And like all my users disappeared. So that was horrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done some other things. So I've mostly been in kind of the more consulting, management role. How do you build a company? How do you build out a support team? How do you do all that sort of stuff? But I do like to indulge in the creative side every now and then. If you actually my Deviant art page, you'll find some really cheesy poetry and some really awesome haiku and some other just random things. But I haven't touched it in like 10 years.
Do you have any advice? I was going to say, do you have any advice for anybody that's starting out?
Yeah, do it every day and don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
And embrace failure. Failure should not be bad. Failure should be, you did it the wrong way, so try a different way. Go back and do it again. So many people are either afraid to try, anything, whether it's writing or it's doing a startup or quitting your day job or changing careers, right? There's just this fear of failure or fear of what other people think. So you know what? Yeah. My number one advice is learn to not care. Mm-hmm. So I'm a massive introvert, which I'm sure is very clearly obvious to all of you. And I hate getting up on stage and doing this sort of stuff. I'm going to go take a nap after this. But the thing that helped me the most, just kind of get over that stuff, is getting this mental point where I just don't care. And the minute I don't care, I can go up on stage, I can crack some jokes. I'm super easy. I'm relaxed. I'm not trying to impress anybody because I just don't care. And then I can be authentic and genuine and if this is cool, I can talk about whatever I want. The same thing too for negotiations. Let me tell you, the most powerful way to be like that guy in the room with the solid steel cojones is to not care about the deal whatsoever. You're I don't like that. No, don't want it. I'm out of here. People will fall over themselves to get you back to the table and give you a better deal. It is crazy. But yeah, don't care what other people think. Do your thing, enjoy it. And if it's not good, do it again, make it better. Always try to be better. Always be in that pursuit of aspiring and being, better and cooler. But just like anything else, you can't be Bruce Lee overnight. It takes a long time to reach a level of mastery of something, but it's a journey. Think about if you ever played sports in elementary school. Well, you're certainly not ready for the varsity team in elementary school. It takes a couple of years to kind of get there, but it's doable if you put your mind to it and you put in the time. And it's even like with writing, write every day. Even if you're not contributing to the book that you're writing, write something. Just get into that habit and do it. And that's the trick. For people that do, things tend to accumulate over time, and then suddenly you've got a body of work, and people think that you're awesome and want to publish your book.
Thank you.
I did.
Yeah,
and I know that I've seen Jaron. Is it Lanier or Lanier?
Jaron Lanier, I think. Yeah.
Lanier, yes. So I remember seeing him with the book "You Are Not a Gadget" several years ago, and he had that wind instrument that had the on and off switches, and he was talking about how it's a computer. An ancient computer.
Yeah.
And he seems to have been another pioneer in the space. So what's your take on him?
So Jaron is probably the original thinker, in that sort of space. Even going back to like the 80s, Jaron Lanier's name is all over the place. And I don't know that he built a lot of things, but he was absolutely the authority and like the foremost thinker. Writer, publisher, influencer, speaker. I don't know anybody in the industry that was around at the time that wasn't just like in awe of Jaron. And even today, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of some of his viewpoints or how he goes about things, but the man is he's an absolute legend. And certainly way so far. I mean, I like to tell people I've forgotten more about VR than you with your little fresh MBA from Stanford, but he's forgotten more about it than I've ever learned. So yeah.
What about Ray Kurzweil?
So every time I hear that name, I always think about the keyboards. So it's a little tricky for me to kind of get past that and move on to the singularity stuff. But again, massively cerebral, intensely, influential. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but the effect on the industry and technology in multiple industries is absolutely undeniable. And I think, to some degree, without guys like Kurzweil or Jaron or even Elon Musk to a degree, we would be living in a completely different world, or a lot of these things would still be ideas, and maybe somebody wouldn't have been inspired to go and try to build or do because of something they saw or heard or read or experienced by one of these guys.
I mean, for someone like me, I'm disabled. I've got rheumatoid arthritis. The idea of the metaverse is brilliant because it means that I can go places that I can't really go in real life. So I love it. But do you have any worries about it becoming at all dystopian? Like people just not going out anymore, not getting on planes anymore?
Yeah, I think the dystopian stuff really comes into play when you look at like Facebook and Twitter, right? Regardless of how anybody here is politically speaking, there is an elite factor in both of those, and if you don't like it or they have a different opinion or whatever, they can just shut you down and change things. And now Facebook is like, yeah, we want 50% of everything, and Twitter's like, screw you, Elon, we don't like free speech either, and you can't play. I mean, there's just all this sort of stuff. And the risk is if some big, large corporate something or other has the keys to the big fundamental pieces of the metaverse, it's not going to matter what the small people do. It's just going to be dystopian. You're going to be tracked everywhere. You're not going to have control over stuff. And, you think it's bad today. People, know when you sit down because of how your phone changes. It's going to be completely different when your every experience is tracked, not just from a GPS perspective, but where you're looking, who you're talking to, which emote you decide to use. I mean, there are so many levels of data that can be mined about you and sold. It's a little horrifying. And then at some point, we're all going to have, implants and contact lenses provided by the government that you need to travel and, whatever. And it's just going to be, it's not good. But guys like me, I don't like any of that. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't care. So I'm going to go in the opposite direction and try to do something different. So there's a lot of other people out there like me that are thinking about this, that want to avoid the dystopian things. Some are thinkers and talkers, and others are doers and builders. But this stuff isn't cheap, and it takes time to do, and it takes a lot of time to think about and do right. I have the advantage of spent a lot of time, kind of thinking about it already. But I'm certainly not going to be the only guy or team, trying to do this. But I think there's enough momentum now, and there's plenty of money to be made. I mean, some of the money for metaverse things right now are just absolutely staggering. I think we'll be fine. And, the bad stuff will fall away. It's like, I don't expect Meta's Horizons or whatever to be around like long at all. I mean, come on, they don't even have legs. How can you not have legs? That really bugs me. So I'm concerned about it, but I'm not overly worried. And I think that, if I have my way, me and other people that think like me will have a better solution that will attract people. And at the end of the day, it's all about where the user goes. It's not about, who's in control.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. If you provide something where you're in control of your own identity and your own data and so on, then people will come.
It's okay. It's just, this is why I was so eager to get the app ready and out for the individual influencer, because it can empower, the small underdog so much faster to get into this space than the Coca-Cola. I remember when we had that meeting with, I think it's Diane, your partner. She was like talking about going to all these big brands. I was like, no, don't do that. Don't go to them first, please. Like, empower the other people that aren't destroying the planet like these big brands are.
Yeah.
And you have the patents and the ability to kind of control that inflow. So I was really sad to hear that was a target.
Well, it's a little bit. We have to make money, because it costs to build this, right? Number one. Number two, working with some of these big brands. What's really interesting is most of the ones we've talked to in the last 6 months or 9 months, they're like, we have to do something metaverse, or we have a mandate, we got to do something metaverse. And then the natural question is, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, we have no idea. We don't even know what this is. So we go from like trying to sell them something to trying to be a partner to educate them and like walk them through. I'm like, I should be charging these guys like out the butt.
Don't leave them in the dark.
Well, yeah, but it gives us the ability to influence and help them see, there's a better way to do this that's more engaging and more useful or whatever to kind of consumers and stuff, as well as, pay us lots of money so we can actually build it. But, when you think about, again, the core kind of DNA to the company and the team, another thing that kind of sets us apart is the idea of monetization. And it's not so much, I want to get rich, and I do, because I want to buy an island and have sharks with lasers. But it's the ability for us to make it easy for a business or a brand or a content creator to monetize. If I can make it really easy for you to make some stuff, and then, never mind, Patreon or YouTube, have people subscribe to your Omniscape channel and pay you like, $10 a week or a month to access the really cool 3D bar crawl with like dinosaurs and skeletons, right? That to me is amazing. When we start having people create content and are like making money, and then like the first day I see a YouTube video with some random guy like, here's how I made $10,000 on Omniscape, subscribe and here's whatever. I'm gonna be like, oh wow, okay, this is really cool. Some other dude is like trying to make money, but he's teaching people how to do stuff. And I think that's
some ladies.
That's amazing. Yeah, or some ladies for sure, because you're way more creative and better at writing than most guys are. But yeah, no, it's like the more we can do to facilitate, I think that's how we win in the long run. And even too with like political stuff, like usually Ukraine, for example, when a lot of the internet and whatever was shut down and all that sort of jazz, if we had tools that made it easy for people to communicate, maybe upload, geotagged, photos or audio or whatever, maybe, tie it into the metaverse. I think that's interesting. Or, what about like 2 or 3 or 5 years from now? What are they going to do at Mariupol? Well, can we go back and rebuild it in the metaverse to what it used to look like for historical reasons? And then can we do a whole nother brand new version of what it's going to look like when they rebuild the whole city? And how can we use that to spread awareness and kind of, restore some hope and some vision beyond, look at all this rubble. It's like, no, we've preserved what it used to be, and here's what it's going to be in the future, and we all want to work together. So there's a lot of things like that where I think the metaverse technology can really have an impact on the world beyond, buy my coin or I want to buy a plot next to Snoop Dogg.
And how
we are diverse here. So, I mean, Coca-Cola is an excellent business. And for a creator or a business leader to control the market and say, this is not okay, but that one is okay, is not one of liberty. So
I agree.
If
so
Coca-Cola has interest, let them come.
I'm a big, I don't want to say I'm a libertarian because I'm not, but I'm a big guy for just justice and freedom. And like, you do what you want to do, but just don't mess up my stuff, right? But again, I think the key word is empower and facilitate. I think that's important. But when you look at like the early days of the internet and some communities like, The Well and other things, it was very intellectual. It was very awesome. But, you wrote and posted stuff under your own name. And if you said something bad, you got in an argument with somebody else, and like that was it. Nobody got fired, nobody whatever. But people wouldn't talk to you around the water cooler for a couple of weeks because you said something asinine or whatever. But because your identity was tied to it, you was responsibility, right? I think that's important. But at the same time, too, you kind of want to have that level of anonymity on the internet for a whole variety of reasons. And people, when you look at like social structures, people have different roles, right? So I have different contexts. I can be Robert the boss. I can be Robert the board director. I could be Robert, father, brother, coach, teacher, student, lawnmower guy, grocery guy, or whatever. And how I interact and relate to other people changes on the context. If I'm at church helping out, well, that's that role. If I'm, fixing somebody's car, that's that role. Right? It's always different. So I think, as far as the metaverse goes, you kind of need the ability to change the context of your personality and identity based on what you're doing. Am I shopping? Am I giving a class or a seminar to a bunch of people? Or am I trying on different anime outfits for my avatar, or am I, blowing stuff up in a fun, game somewhere? I don't want my business work avatar to be used in the game where I'm blowing crap up in, right? Because, oh shit, I just shot the boss, and boy, he's going to be pissed on Monday, right? No, I need that ability to be a little anonymous. So kind of the idea for us is to have a, kind of a core identity. So we can the system can hold you accountable, but you should still be able to have some level of privacy and anonymity depending on the context, right?
Avatars, basically.
Yep. So I want the best of both worlds, right? I want my cake and eat it too. And then, if you take that to, a couple of other different levels, putting that control back in your hands in terms of your data and everything else, and tying it to your avatar, or whatever. I think that's critically important, right? So number one, and then number two, we have this whole the community moderation sort of problem, and this is what Facebook and Twitter are struggling with now, because you can't have pure anarchy, but you also can't clamp. Excuse me. You can't clamp down 100%. You got to find something in the middle, which is really hard to do to be fair and free. So we thought, okay, screw it, let's do something different. So kind of our idea, just like I would let you kind of publish any kind of experience you want for free. It's just viewable to like you and your friends, right? Nobody else will ever see it. But again, you should be able to pay $1 or whatever to make it public so everybody can see it. But then at the same time, somebody else should be able to come in and pay $1 and make it go away back to the private layer. So you end up monetizing this idea of community moderation and management. So good stuff is popular. People are like, oh yeah, I'll put it in a quarter and give it like another day to be on the public channel because, we think this should be here for the next year. So let's just keep donating, right? Or, oh my gosh, this is really horrible and offensive and I hate pink flamingos. So I'm gonna get all my neighbors to come in and pay some money to make it go away. But we're not deleting somebody's work. We're just pushing it back to the private layer. So we still respect the creator and the voice, but we let the community decide, should this be, we really don't want to have this kind of 3D thing here in front of the White House or the church or some other thing. Or maybe we do. Maybe it's, it's something that adds value to a community, is fun and interesting. Or you stick it behind a subscription wall. Hey, if you want to see what New York looks like, with a hellish landscape of 3D demons chasing you, well, you got to subscribe and it's $50 and we'll change everything. And I think it's not a perfect solution, but like this is where we're thinking in terms of how do we do things differently to make money, but more importantly, be the fair thing and let the kind of the community commons be a community commons, but with some structure.
It strikes me that you've got this enormous task ahead of you. How are you? I mean, like with the Minecraft model where people just go in and build the world out themselves. Can you apply that kind of model to this? Can you get people to help you build this world?
100%. So I would say a very large majority of the technical stuff behind the scenes is all game tech. It's like 101 MMO. If you've ever designed or developed, it's the same thing. It gets different because of the context and how we're doing other stuff, so it's a little complicated there. But when you think about like doing the digital twins of the whole planet, that's not going to be easy, not happening anytime soon. So a lot of it kind of boils down to how we treat the data structures. So when we go in and we scan a city, for example, it's not just a single mesh. It's broken down into cells. So we could open it up and say, hey, this cell over here, it's the corner of 5th and Main. We don't have the time or the artist available to kind of go in and clean up the model or whatever. But you could be a freelancer, or you think about like Wikipedia or something, right? Well, or Open Street View. Like, well, hell, I'll do it. I got some time, and I'm a good modeler, and I want my name on it. Like, Robert did the most awesome update for this particular building, and he's cool. So you should pay him to come do your building in some other sort of city, right?
Yeah.
And so by treating things like that, even before we get to a city to do the full-on 3D scan, by again opening these tools and letting people have like a variety of capabilities to do stuff, whether it's super high end or super low polygon, there's other filterings and levels of detail and whatnot where we can open up. And then, I fully expect brand new professions to come out of this, right? I'm a city rebuilder or, hey, I do SEO stuff today, but I'm going to start offering all my clients the ability to manage their AR campaigns, or I'm going to do custom avatars for all my clients, or, whatever. I mean, it's like, there's so many opportunities for side hustles or full-on businesses here that extend upon things that people are already doing in many other areas. Or, one thing we actually were trying to figure out how to do is how do we expand our 3D, whatever NFT marketplace with an API or something that could plug into Shopify. So if you've got, a WordPress store, you should be able to populate it with stuff from our marketplace and sell to your own customers for a piece. Mm-hmm. I mean, things like that are could get us to scale very, very, very quickly, very fast, but also just open and enable other people to contribute or be part of, or, you know, find a way to make money.
That was definitely with the take your brand to the blockchain, onboarding people to all the different apps. And then after that, okay, let me show you how to do an AR, VR marketing campaign to your audience to invite them all to meet you on the blockchain. That was like where I was going to go with my very next portion of the offer. So I've been waiting really hard for that app.
It's finally coming. I mean, you can download the app now, but we're still doing like, you know, weekly sort of updates. There's not much content, but yeah, I promise all the cool stuff within the next, say, 3 to 6 months.
Nice.
That's a short period.
It's me that somebody is throwing lots of money at you and you need to grow really fast.
I keep telling people they need to throw lots of money at me. It's like, oh my gosh, well, we don't understand this metaverse thing, or I don't know. I think Facebook. I had one guy, he told me like, it's over. The industry is going to be dominated by Facebook. I'm like, dude, let's talk in 6 months. I can promise you, they're not going to
let this happen.
That's good. That's what I meant. Like not letting them dominate the whole thing. Like giving a chance for the smaller people to get started and flourished before they come in and just completely take everything over.
But you make me so excited hearing all of this. This is the internet all over again, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. No, I honestly think the next 10 years are going to make the last 20 years just going to completely dwarf it in terms of radical change, evolution, and even you know, wealth creation for sure.
You mentioned a convention in Florida. Did you guys go to Comic-Con?
I haven't been to Comic-Con for a few years, although we do have a really good relationship with the Helen Woodward Animal Center out in San Diego.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
they do Comic-Con every year. We're probably going to be supporting them this year for that. I have no idea. I'm just letting my developer guys just do whatever you want, right? It'll be fun. But yeah, they partner with Comic-Con for some of that, and you know, kind of the idea of, you know, puppies and cats running around with like little superhero capes and super bones and snacks. It's just crazy adorable. Yeah, no.
Wow. And Ray is a designer. So Ray, do you have any specific questions for Robert?
I know there's he covered a lot of different stuff. Like you're from like where basically PC games kind of became mainstream with like what was the first one you mentioned? It wasn't Quake.
Well, Wolfenstein.
Yeah, Wolfenstein. So
yeah, they were shocked. They were shocked we made it multiplayer because they hadn't built Doom yet. They're like, "How the hell did you make this multiplayer?" I was like, "Oh well, you know." Yeah, we were also the first company to use PC parts in arcade games.
Where does BSV come into it then? How do you build on the blockchain?
Yeah, so a lot of people have you know, crypto or whatever is kind of the driving focus for their virtual world, right? All you hear all day long is buy our token, buy our coin. Like, oh god, you know, give it up. For us, it's kind of the other way around. You know, blockchain is, I think it's a fundamental underlying technology that's necessary for a global scale metaverse, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you can do kind of without it, but with it, you get a lot of security, you know, in provenance and tracking, and it's like there's just a lot it adds to it.
Timestamping.
Yeah, timestamping is hugely important. And then when you start looking at like enterprise use cases, right? It's cool that I've got a 3D digital twin of my, you know, my manufacturing center, my oil rig, but for me to get real use out of that, either on site with AR or remote, if I'm logging in to kind of check out, you know, the output or the machinery, if I'm going to be pulling in data from all the sensors and machinery and all that, I need to know that the data is real, it's coming from the right spot, and that it's historically, you know, whatever. I need to be able to go back in time too. And you can't do that right now with anything else and still have that trust. But if that data is on blockchain, it's recorded, it's verifiable, and you know, you can do all kinds of stuff with it, and it's also trusted because I know where it came from. So again, blockchain is one of those things that I think is necessary. A lot of people, you know, don't think it is because they're so focused on the crypto coin piece of it, which I think is, you know, they're just wrong. They're looking in the wrong direction, and this is like a blind spot. But if you think about it from that fundamental tech, it makes absolute sense. And then when you start comparing the BSV as a protocol to all the other ones, you know, good luck with Ethereum for Sandbox, whatever. It's fine for now. You're going to make $10 million, but it's not sustainable, and you can't scale it or grow it. So it doesn't matter if you put on 5 or 6 side chains and this network and that network. You're just complicating your own stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, get over your own bias and use BSV and be happy and make actual real money.
So between the tokens, the secure layer, the timestamping, the microtransactions, I mean, it all lends itself, doesn't it, to a digital realm?
Yep.
Or, well, augmented reality as well.
Yeah, and I think that was actually a surprise for a lot of people. You know, if you went to anybody in the crypto community, say 2 years ago, and say, "Hey, man, in 2 years you're going to be talking about 3D virtual worlds more than anything else," they would have told you that you're a moron. They don't care about games, whatever. But there is such a natural fit, and you know, all the metaverse, AR, VR, whatever is so sexy, and it covers so many just amazing, you know, use cases or other technologies. You know, AI and machine learning and computer vision and IoT. I mean, literally, so give me a buzzword and I can show you where it fits in the metaverse stuff. That, you know, they're all realizing that, you know, crypto coins are one thing, but man, when you wrap it up in AR, VR, it's like all the rules go out the window. I think Sandbox just announced today they're going to try to raise another $400 million at a $2 billion pre-money valuation. I'm like, okay, wow, that's a lot of money, and B, they can barely handle like 1,000 concurrent connections. You know, I mean, it's like it seems like a money grab to me. It doesn't seem like we're trying to actually, you know, build something that's actually going to be useful.
Is it hard deciding like what you want to be on the blockchain for BSV? Because I know like BSV is pretty special where you can have media uploaded onto it.
Yeah, we early on we decided to go with Fabric. You know, and they at the time they didn't have their stuff, you know, fully baked either, but it was an opportunity for us to kind of have a collaborative sort of environment. So, you know, as we were figuring out what we needed to do, because, you know, we were not blockchain experts leaping into this. So it was like a lot of this has been learn as you go sort of thing. They were really receptive and kind of worked with us, and it was a learning experience for them too. Well, what do you want to do with this? Or how's this supposed to work? How's this supposed to work? So I think, you know, there's been some really good back and forth there and some really good, just friendly stuff. And, you know, we've talked to other people too, you know, like RelayX or Enchain and all that. But at the time, Fabric was just the one that was ready to move the quickest and was the easiest for us. So.
Yeah, they're a great company because they respond really fast and, you know, give you really good answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're super friendly and super nice for sure.
Will you build? I mean, with Fabric, because you got Fabric X. Okay, so are you building out a 3D art gallery for them to put all their NFT art in, which actually links to, you know, the actual NFT itself?
I would say not right this minute, but that's coming. The idea that I have a 3D object as NFT, it needs to be transferable between things, right? And so at some point, you know, if you bought a 3D object somewhere in this NFT, it doesn't matter if it was from OpenSea or Fabric or somewhere else, you should be able to import it into Omniscape and do things with it, both in AR and in VR. That's the other thing that makes this different is you should be able to translate back and forth. So you should be able to go to our marketplace and say, hey, cool, I want a 3D art gallery for my house, and I'm going to look at 10 or 15 that some other people designed. I like this one. Now I'm going to buy some other objects and decorate it, and then I'm going to link it on the map to my house, and then I'm going to stick all my cool 3D NFT art on the walls, and then open it up for my friends to come hang out.
Yeah.
That's what we want people to be able to do.
Yeah.
Yes. The minute that it's possible, you must let me know, and I will build us like a Women of BSV clubhouse.
No, you need to do that now.
Treehouse.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, I would start working on that right now because.
Can I have a castle? I want a castle with turrets.
You can literally have. This is the fun thing with the metaverse, right?
You can build anything.
Time and space are meaningless. You can literally.
Well, I mean, like literally, there are going to be multiverses within the metaverse, aren't there?
Yes, right.
You know?
And that's how it should be.
Have you played any BSV games?
No, the only games I've had any time for have been Elden Ring, just because I needed to check that out. And then I think I played around with Valheim maybe about a year ago. I've been so busy just trying to keep up with this. And, you know, I mean, it's like I'm in the really weird position where, you know, I'm the CEO, but I'm also doing the fundraising. I'm also doing like the product strategy. I'm doing the business development. And I mean, I'm doing all the things, even though I have a team and a staff, and I've got, you know, chief biz dev person and a CFO and an operations guy. And I've got an amazing project manager director, and I got an amazing team. There's just not enough of us to cover all the things. So I have to fill in all the blanks, or, you know, just whatever. And then I'm also writing the patents and, you know, doing the videos and doing the slide decks. So
Wow.
probably the thing I'm most ashamed about is ever since horrible subs went down because of the COVID stuff, I've hardly watched any anime in like 2 years, and I feel like that's a soul crushing thing to admit. So
you've got withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, no, seriously. So I was like, oh my god, I need something. I didn't even watch some Naruto at this point, you know.
So have you worked with any museums at all? The first AR and VR experience I had was at the National History Museum in London.
Funny you should ask. I can't answer that. Ask me again at the blockchain conference.
Ooh.
Nice.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Big hint, clang.
The best part of that hint is it's a good hint. There is a part of that, but but the rest of it is so completely not museum related. You're gonna be like, whoa, yeah, no, it's cool.
Okay.
We literally have, I think we have got 2 or 3 massive things on deck, and if any one of them we can close in the next couple weeks, it's going to be earth shaking for everybody.
Wow.
Okay. Well, one of my ideas was, I mean, it's around the education but acting kind of things, is to rebuild the Globe Theatre Shakespeare and take
that
you
would be
back
awesome.
in time, so that you could actually,
Like
you know,
that
go back
for-
in time and be a part of a performance.
Yeah,
Or,
no,
you know, and see.
I dig
And
that.
throw
And
tomatoes.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to give me loads of money so I can give it to Robert to build my Shakespeare experience, that would be
So when we start making like the big dollars, one of the things I'm going to try to do is build a nonprofit off to the side and call it like the National Institute for Virtual and Augmented Reality or something, and
that'd
then
be cool.
get some grant programs going to fund things like that, because
Yeah.
I think that's a necessary piece for just culture and just appreciation and art.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I don't do it, somebody somewhere I think will want to do or support that sort of stuff. There was actually when we were in CES, some guys came up to me and they had rebuilt like historic Jerusalem and like King Solomon's temple and all that stuff, and they had the cool little VR experience, and they were so excited to show it to me. I was like, guys, this is pretty awesome, but it would be even cooler if it was like linked to, you know, the actual city of Jerusalem, and I could go around and say current day, history day, future day, you know, and kind of be able to see those different sort of things from a historical or, you know, whatever sort of period. And they were like, oh my God, how do we do that? I'm like, oh, ask me again in 6 months. So yeah, no, I think that's important for a lot of reasons.
So are you building tools for other people to build with? What is it like that you're making? Are you making the world itself, or are you making tools to make the world?
We're building the foundations for all of it. So there will be in the Omniscape world, which is the real world, because the digital twin and whatever, but that can be extended and enhanced with anything else. So if you wanted to, you know, link a Minecraft server to a location, okay, easy. If you wanted to build your own entire, you know, 3D space simulation game and have that as it's like kind of like the Oasis, right? There are multiple worlds, but they're all interconnected. And the interconnection thing is like it's identity, it's inventory, it's, you know, commerce. All those are the important pieces, and without all of those together and some kind of consistent integrated layer, you can't do all the fun things at all.
What I'm imagining is like you know, with Amazon is basically the superstore of all superstores.
But you can have your own store within it, yeah.
Right.
Or world, yeah.
And so this could be that, but like a lot more fun.
Yeah, the Matrix plus the Oasis plus some other things.
Can you imagine when you actually get like a 5D experience though, and you got smelly vision, and then you've got like a wind machine or something coming out of your your monitor, so that you actually get the real smell and feel of the atmosphere that you're actually in the virtual space.
I joke with my developers about doing real-time smell all the time, and there was actually a company that tried that probably 96, 97. I think they were called, what were they called? It might have been Smell-O-Vision or no, it's DigiSense. They become DigiSense, DIGISENTS, and they had like this little diffuser sort of thing that they have like little oil vials in. So if somebody sent you an email with like the right tag for say rose or dog poo, right? The little thing on your desk to start emitting the appropriate scent, which is super fun and cool, except it was super exciting. Super expensive, and it was hard to maintain, and sometimes it would just do, you know, burn. I was like, what is this burn smell? It's not, you know, on the list of scents. Like burn. That's not what I expected for a rose, right? But yeah, then there was another company that had done these floppy disks that you could put in your Apple, you know, whatever the 2C or whatever it was at the time, and the heat from the rotation of the disk spinning would release the scents, so you could pop in different disks and you would get like different smells. So kind of like scratch and sniff experiences, right?
I had a game that was like a scratch and sniff game, and you opened up these scents. and the smells were so pungent and so vile, I had to throw the whole game away.
Yeah. Some of them would be,
But no, couldn't bear it. Like, I mean,
that's terrible.
synthetic smells can be pretty bad, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on scratch and sniff stickers. I mean, that was like currency, when I was in elementary school.
It was a bit more pungent than that. It was like, like a perfume coming off. But there's so many smells in one box. It's just like a hellish object as far as I'm concerned.
I think that sort of stuff is going to come back at some point. It's going to be more VR. It'll be built into the headset or something. But even then, we kind of almost have to be careful. If I'm taking over your audio and your visual and your scent, I can really put you on a mind trip and basically give you false experiences and false memories, right? If you've ever fallen asleep playing World of Warcraft on like a 4-day binger, you know what I'm talking about.
No, but probably my son has, yeah.
And for entrepreneurs, maybe seamstresses like Ray or other aspiring fashion designers, if they go into the virtual world and buy or design some fashion or accessories, then could they also, like, let's say as the player, could I then go to Ray's shop in the marketplace and say, please, here are my measurements. Could you ship this to me?
Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on Ray and what she wants to do. So being able to link the two, she could say, I've actually sewn 3 of these cool cosplay dresses. So I'm making 3 NFT whatevers, or I found a 3D artist I'm going to partner with, and they're going to do 3D actual outfits to match my designs. So when somebody buys it, I can wear it on my avatar, and I can call Ray up and say, hey, cool, I bought your thing. I want to exchange it now. Here's my measurements. Send me the real one. That's part of where kind of our patented tech comes into play.
Great.
But that's going to be, people don't realize Fortnite makes about $200 to $300 million a month selling skins.
Yeah,
it's like
I know because my kids buy them.
Yeah, right.
And what's the average price of a skin?
I don't know, like $5 to $20. I mean, I don't.
A lot, Diddy, like a lot more than you'd imagine. My youngest son is constantly buying skins. So he's not so bad, slowed down a bit now, but for years and years, he was happy enough just to buy the skins. And you're like, but you've played through the game. It's not changing the game.
Doesn't matter.
But people are.
It's identity and prestige and how you express your personality. And even today, being able to express yourself and be different is important. So yeah, you want to talk about. Anybody getting into the avatar clothing games for metaverse is going to be huge. We're already starting to see brands like Gucci and whatever, they're all doing stuff. But from an artist or an actual designer sort of perspective, anything that's unique, and again, if you've got real world stuff is amazing, but if you have real world and digital at the same time, that's just as amazing. I mean, honestly, I would pay for some custom stuff just because I want to look like super futuristic the next time I go on some stage somewhere. But I also want my avatar to be like, oh my God, like Robert's avatar is like 12 feet tall and it's like, completely dominates the room, right?
What about places like Netflix? Do you think they would take the idea and kind of throw with it so that they can, you can go into a 3D virtual cinema to actually sit and watch instead of just, do you know what I mean? I mean, some people like to be completely immersed, don't they? So
that idea has been around for about 15 or 20 years and several people have tried it, but they've never executed on it well. And the idea that, we're all bored, we're all stuck at home because of COVID, but we all want to watch The Northman together, right? Because awesome movie. So we shall be able to log in and have some virtual popcorn, make fun of each other and do dumb, Viking jokes and then sit down and watch the movie. I think on Netflix you can do like some shared viewing now, but it's mostly like you're watching it with a little chat room over in the corner. But being able to have that 3D experience of being like in an IMAX theater or something, I think is cooler, and it's certainly way more fun. And honestly, I want to be able to throw popcorn at you because you're talking too much. I think that's cool, right? So I think that's coming, but it's probably going to be a case where regular people just set up their own little environment. It's like you can have like your own theater in your house.
Yeah,
you should be able to do your own 3D sort of theater, and then at some point Netflix will wake up and they'll do a deal with us, and we'll have an API where we can deliver Netflix streaming to your house for some kind of metaverse subscription, so you can stick it on any monitor or wall or whatever that you want and share it with your friends. So I think that's probably the more likely case than a discrete, hey, here's the Netflix.
Because I mean, obviously, the pop concerts have actually gone down quite well. Because I know with Post Malone and Marshmallow, Post Malone particularly. So I envision a lot more of those in the future as well. So
100%. Yeah, I think Marshmello was the first one to do the Fortnite concert, which was pretty awesome. It could have been more awesome, but it was pretty crazy. So yeah, everything is going to change in like the next 5 or 6 years, and I think especially when you start seeing some of the stuff that we're rolling out because of why and because of some of the entities that we're partnering with. I think it's so here's one example. So we just signed with the Creative Artists Agency recently, so they're representing us now, and their access to celebrities and sports entertainment and just athletes and whatever, it is just crazy huge.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunities for us to do really cool things, and again, sports entertainment and other kind of fun stuff. So yeah,
that's exciting.
So I'm going to nominate Robert as Metaverse God. Because I like his, verse with a big sense of humor, and I think that's really important, isn't it? And I don't see the Zuck giving us that sense of humor.
Please no. I promise to give everybody legs. Yeah, for all the money and all the people they have, there's really not a lot of actual vision or thought, which is crazy. I mean, they literally have like 10,000 people. They're going to employ like another 20,000, and there's so much politics and infighting and just. People, there's just no vision there, and I think it's just going to be terrible. I tell you what, though, I think after maybe about another year, Facebook or Meta, they're going to go on an acquisition spree, and they're going to snap up any and everybody that's small to fix their problems. But I think by that point, I want to be the one company that everybody's scared stiff that Facebook will acquire, because that means I have like a really strong negotiating power. But yeah, no, it'll be good as long as I'm benevolent dictator for life. Everything will be fine. I promise.
Yeah. I'm good for that.
Hip hip hooray!
Yay!
Yes. Well, Robert, we are grateful for your time today and for your vision.
Thank you for listening to me drone on and on about random stuff.
That is fascinating.
We love it.
Like running blades.
Well, before we go, I did promise some book things. So I would highly recommend Dream Park by Larry Niven and Jerry Purnell. Oath of Fealty, also by Larry Niven. It's not quite the same, but it covers some interesting sort of topics that mesh with Dream Park for sure. Definitely Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, like 100%. Neuromancer by William Gibson. You can't not read those two books.
Yeah.
The Rainbow's End or Edge. Oh my God, it's Edge. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's one of the two. Rainbow's something by Vernor Vinge. Absolutely must read. And then obviously movies stuff, The Matrix and all that. But I think if you like anime, I strongly recommend two specifically. One is Den-noh Coil. You'll get like an eye candy full of like really cool AR stuff and an amazing story with a little bit of psychological thriller parts to it. Really good stuff. And probably my favorite movie of all time. It's an anime called Summer Wars. If you don't do anything else, find that and watch it, but don't watch the dubbed version. You have to watch the sub version, otherwise it just loses all meaning.
My kids are my youngest is a real anime fan. Is this okay for a 13-year-old kid to watch?
Absolutely. Family friendly movie, and at the end of it, you're probably going to cry once or twice, but you're going to be such a fan of metaverse stuff. Yeah, I just trust me. If you can't find it, send me a private message and I will hook you up. But this is absolutely a movie worth watching, and it's super. If you like the Hayao Miyazaki stuff, you will love this. But it's called Summer Wars. Yeah, really good stuff.
So we're going to list all of this underneath the video, so that people can find it.
Oh, and my book. But let's all remember that I wrote it a long time ago, so it's probably not that good.
Was there like any good predictions that you made in that book? Because I'm afraid I haven't read it. What did you predict in that book that's come true?
Oh, I don't remember, but a lot of it was that most of the industry is doing it wrong, and they're about to hit a period of decline and not growth because they're doing it wrong. And as I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of flack for that because at the time, they were making money hand over fist. But no, the whole, I mean, like literally, can you name like 2 or 3 new MMOs coming out this year?
No.
Or other than maybe Red Dead Redemption, like what's on top of your mind? But back in the early 2000s, you talk to any gamer, there was like 10 or 15 that everybody's like super excited about.
And why is that?
It's lack of innovation, lack of stagnation. The business models changed. They kind of went, free to play kind of turned into a big, money suck and some other sort of stuff. But it's like, whatever worked for like World of Warcraft, everybody just tried to copy. So you just got clones of it. And all the other, if you've ever played like a text-based, MUD or MMO, where there's so much focus on social interaction and role playing and all that. You don't get that. You're not actually relevant to the game of World of Warcraft. You're not the hero. You're not the main character. Nothing you can do will ever actually have an effect. And the way I think MMOs should be designed is you should be the hero, right? There may be 50 of you, but if you go beat up an orc somewhere, I feel like that orc should remember that you beat him up, or maybe if you killed them, the son of the orc that you killed should wait like a year and then come after your character with like a small army of other orcs, right? That means that you had an impact. You changed something. You were part of the story. Or, maybe, I don't know, you've got some kind of raid at a castle somewhere. Everybody's like, oh, we can't get in, so we got to go back to the sewer grate, and nobody's got a key. But hey, if Billy can get in his car and drive over to the local mall and solve an augmented reality puzzle, he can get to the secret.
Jump ahead some steps, yeah.
Yeah, to unlock the gate thing, right? So he's got to fight off invisible rats at the mall, and then we can all go in and storm the castle. That guy's the hero because he did something. He's part of the story. Yeah. And most games and MMOs miss that. You're not really part of the narrative anymore. You're just kind of going through a rail doing the same repetitive sort of thing. But yeah, these are like all things I just pointed out about the industry. It's like there's a lot of amazing stuff, but you have to take a completely different approach to build and design a virtual world of any kind of anything, and they have to be more living and more vibrant and more dynamic. And there's a lot of that today, but it's still a lot of the same as it was 10 or 20 years ago with prettier graphics.
So will you build like certain repercussions for actions then as well? So if you did something complete, if depending on the environment, because Grand Theft Auto, prime example, a lot of violence in Grand Theft Auto, but there's no repercussion for the character's action.
There were no real repercussions. But this is where social interactions can make such a difference. If you let players, take over a city and change the form of government, or do other sort of things, or you can vote, you can be sheriff, and if you're sheriff, you can arrest another player. But if you arrest another player, he should be able to appeal that with another player that's a judge, right? I mean, that sounds a little complicated, but you put the right sort of mechanics in there, I guarantee you there's a lot of people that would quit their day jobs to live in these environments because they want to be a judge, or they want to be the sheriff, or whatever. Or I'm going to spend all my time actually building out trade routes between two new player-run cities, and then I got to hire some other PvP guys to be guards on my thing all the time because I keep getting raided by other players. When your virtual world reaches a stage where that sort of mechanic and gameplay experience becomes emergent, you have something that's special and magical that will just persist over time and just be always something new going on. And you know what?
Minecraft, really.
Yeah, right. Or if something's not news going on, well then get involved in some political intrigue and go assassinate some guy and then take over his mantle leadership and be the the new king and like start a war. And like what, EVE Online, yeah, that's like a perfect example of how the right types of mechanics can really engage people for a very, very, very long time. But we've never actually seen that in a decently run large scale MMO. And that's after I've bought my island, I will probably go and try to just build this because I want to play it and for like a long time. But but a lot of these ideas and philosophies in terms of building worlds or user experiences or user interactions kind of influence a lot of how we approach what we want to do for the metaverse.
And you also mentioned the rise of the East as a competitor for the West.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, I forgot about that. No, people thought I was an idiot, but at the time it was like all these studios. So at the time, it was a lot of great games coming out of China or whatever, but they were very low resolution, very, very 2D oriented, not much to it. And like all the cool games were all US based. And then suddenly overnight, we started sending all of our like main studios, Electronic Arts and Ubisoft and Interplay, and everybody was running over to China, and to a lesser degree, Malaysia and some other surrounding countries. And they were putting up these studios and training people. How do you make games? Let's make Richard Garrett's new game coming out was being made, and whatever sort of country. But it was like this massive talent drain and brain drain from the West straight over to the East, and then suddenly all these Eastern companies were cranking out MMOs that made our stuff look like dirt, and it was like way more cool, way more interesting. And I mean, even like with Final Fantasy stuff, right? The artistic style and aesthetic is really, really super pretty. And you compare that to World of Warcraft, and you're like, why am I spending time over here when it's way cooler over here? And then as a result, with the West, just like in many other industries, manufacturing and whatever, we basically farmed it all out to China. Now we have problems with China, and we're behind the ball. We're playing catch up now, where we used to have at least a 10 to 20 year head start. It's going to take us a while to recover from that. But just as it happened in the game industry, it's happened in a lot of other industries as well. And now that's what we're reaping. When you get too greedy you look for the easy way out, there's always a cost and repercussion.
Just over Easter, I watched a film, The Darkest Hour, about Winston Churchill. And it was an excellent film. And it turns out that it was produced by a Chinese company. Yeah.
There you go, right?
So I thought, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until they tell you have to edit your movie for launch.
Right. Yeah. No, but they were really telling the story that would let us all be learned up about Churchill. So I was impressed. I thought, oh, Pengyo, you did a good job. But another aspect of this book that I've enjoyed so far is how you talk about attracting the whole gamut of players. Whereas the old school companies were just focused on the same players and keeping them in game rather than courting new players to come into the virtual world.
And that's why things have stagnated, right? It's just like, if you're gonna cook some food, you can't always use the same 5 ingredients all the time. You have to mix things up, and you have to expand and make different food for different people. Not everybody wants a taco, right? Sometimes I want a pizza or a salad. I mean, give me some variety. But anyway, so I'm kind of glad that most of what I wrote is still relevant. But again, I'm still kind of embarrassed at the writing style. But it's I don't know. After all these years, I think things are finally changing and finally coming around, and people are finally listening and trying to make efforts. So I think the next 5 or 10 years is going to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes,
it's going to be crazy.
Just like you said earlier about write every day, and then suddenly it's a book, and the title is Evolution. And then there you are leading the patents into this evolved industry. So it's a great example.
So cool. Very inspiring for us, Robert. Thank you for coming and talking to us. We really appreciate it.
This has been a lot of fun. Great questions. I've very, very much enjoyed it. And I hope to see you guys at the next CoinGeek conference, and we'll all go grab a beer or something.
Please come back at some point as well. We'll probably be after you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.